Bonjour. Salamu alaikum. What made you so drawn to my welcome? Is it the way I hold your gaze? Or hold out my arms for a reunion hug? Maybe it's the flow of a greeting you know, or by how my clothes set up a more professional tone. Maybe it's when I cared to state my name, Eliana, nice to meet you, and ramble off on a resume's worth of titles and achievements. Or it's the talking point I turn to next. How do I finish this thing? Farewells, resolutions, wrap-ups. We've all been there at some point of our lives. 3 years since, and I've lost contact with more friends than I can make. 3 weeks ago, and I had to mourn the unintentional loss of another sanitizer. And 3 days ago, and I'm still struggling with the shock of losing a beloved pizza restaurant and an influential religious figure. It's commonplace. It's common knowledge that our lives revolve around making as many good first impressions as possible. A 2006 study by Princeton psychologists conclude that attributes such as trustworthiness can be judged within 1/10 of a second. But while we thrive in planning and making that first big splash, we falter at how we can end it well and make a lasting impression. The consequences afterwards could be life-changing, fruitful. It's common knowledge that our lives revolve around making as many good first impressions as possible. A 2006 study by Princeton psychologists conclude that attributes such as trustworthiness can be judged within 1/10 of a second. But while we thrive in planning and making that first big splash, we may falter at how we can end it well and make a lasting impression. If anything, how we finish an interview, a gathering, a presentation, a novel, or even another 18-minute monologue should always exceed, if not meet, the standards of how it began. The consequences afterwards could be life-changing, fruitful, or devastating. Last but not least, the phrase has its roots in theater, when the stars of the shows were often introduced last. Certainly, many cultures around the world have adopted paralleling customs to greet others with the same respect and hospitality at the start and end of their interactions. In East Asian cultures, derivative of the Chinese, bowing for certain degrees held for certain periods of time indicate how much respect one holds for the other. For East Europeans, it's commonplace to not sweep out or clean after a loved one's departure, to avoid wiping out the trail, sweeping them out forever. Even today, Generation Z has resurged the practice of dapping each other's up when they greet. I can still hear their echoing claps long after we left school. For something so deeply revered and rooted in our cultures, where the lines between voluntary and instinctive are blurred, why do we push aside our need for closure? First off, our need for closure? Since when was finality so important? According to FHE Health, finding closure can aid in emotional processing and healing, and makes letting go easier by releasing negative attachments to objects or people. However, finding closure per se is on a case-by-case basis, as it may be detrimental to a person's well-being, especially if the way they find it may be unexpected and may misalign with their ideal scenario. Nonetheless, I've realized that most of the reasons for these can be boiled down into 3 interlinked strands that make up a bigger theory altogether. My cognitive triad for closure. Theoretical, but based on real examples. This was definitely not inspired by the number of ideas I have lined up and crashing out over my psychology textbook. 1, we don't know what to do. How many of us have been in this scenario before? It's been a long day at a family gathering, and as a child, you have 1 foot in the doorway, prepared to flee. The leftovers mom made you hold are so heavy, and you just want to be rid of them, right? It can be exhausting and time-consuming, and quite frankly, boring to wait around for that long. Something that should take around 5 minutes may end up taking 6 times as much. Instead of that, some take to the art of the Irish exit. No, you do not need any clovers or top hats for this. Termed otherwise as the French exit, the Polish exit, or leaving the English way, this refers to the practice of leaving without notifying the host. While some shun it for its rudeness and anxiety it can cause others, younger generations in particular have taken to this due to its time efficiency, lack of fuss, and maintaining the event's mood. Now, despite both of them being complete extremes, they are still derivative of that none of us know what to do in times of closure. In either case, the person is unable to find the right words or gestures to signal their departure. This is something not limited to cultural differences, as even generational gaps, or even without having a solid basic emotional understanding of each other, can make this hard to achieve. 2, we cannot care. By not knowing what to do, we lose all the emotional stakes of resolving with a sound conclusion, which results in putting the least amount of effort to making it count. This can be seen in the 5 stages of grief, in denial. By numbing ourselves to this catastrophic event, it buys us time to process this news, at the cost of meeting that finality. In particular, the disenfranchised type of grief devalues the cause of our pain as something not worth grieving over. Some examples of these causes can include the loss of a job, a pet, or a connection to a living friendship. Likewise, with my generation, the overexposure to violent media, such as natural disasters, readily available on the internet, can make this another factor in making the future more apathetic to finding closure. And 3, we fear. Ultimately, fear is a give and take sort of inhibitor. When we fear, we worry about what the other party. When we don't know what to do, we fear the disgrace from the other party that may be a lack of respect on their end. When we fear, our mind blanks, and we can't think of how to approach finality with an emotional and social understanding. Fear blots out other emotions that vie to be reflected when we part, and a lack of emotion drives an apathetic, this means nothing to me sort of mentality. Even to those who want to find finality, fear can make them lose motivation to fulfill that desire. This is best shown in the term torchless panic, a German word meaning gate closing panic. It was used in the Middle Ages when townspeople were told to get inside the gates before nightfall, leaving outsiders to the perils beyond the settlement. This can tie with this point as we can connect this to our dread of diminishing opportunities when things inevitably come to a close. And the result of all these three? Regrets. Bonnie Ware has published an infamous book entitled The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. A life transformed by the dearly departed. Inspired by our time in palliative care, these regrets are: I wish I had the courage to live a life true to myself, not one others expect of me. I wish I found the courage to express my feelings. I wish I kept in touch with my friends. I wish I hadn't worked so hard. I wish I'd let myself be happier. It is usually only then we realize how much time had passed when we could have done things better or sooner. Had I done enough? How much time had I neglected on others? When they leave, you may prolong their departure. When they leave, you may prolong their departure to cherish how accommodating they really were to you. How much time had I neglected someone when they were alive? After all, people that leave do get more flowers, kisses, and hugs than those that stay. For instance, it was only when one of my close friends was leaving for another country that our friend group finally decided to hang out after school, despite knowing each other for more than 5 years. Regrets are unshakable. There isn't something you can do in a day that you won't regret to some degree. However, there are some ways that can help you. There are some ways to not let them affect you as much in times of closure. They may not apply to all scenarios, but they can mitigate the emotional blow your torchless panic can give you. 1. Plan. If you have enough time, if you have control of your situation, take the time to plan. Plan the location where you'll break the news gently. Plan your words, or even the ideas they're based off of. Most importantly, plan for the future, which in a way can trick your brain into thinking it never really ended. Planning helps you achieve what you want, and also saves you from the problems of trick 2. Skip the dramatics. In film, one of the cheesiest cliches I've seen are the goodbye scenes. The main character is already running late for her flight, but they have just enough time to toss back their hair and hear their best friend say, "Promise me nothing won't change." While these incidents can bring out the best in human connection, it can also set up unhealthy expectations that can hurt deeply if unmet. It can also sour the relationship, especially if one of the parties is viewed as weak and needy. And lastly, accept all your emotions. This may be the most time-consuming part of finding closure. Hurtling between different emotions, let alone keeping track of them, can be overwhelming. However, you may already have to say goodbye with you may already have to say goodbye with many unresolved feelings. However, it's important to reflect on the past and manage your current emotions. As Bluey found out from her mom, sometimes special people come into our lives, stay for a bit, and then they have to go. But the bit where they were here was happy, isn't it? Speaking to loved ones, journaling, therapy, all or some combination of these techniques can help you find acceptance. So, why do we push aside our need for closure? It truly depends on how you see it. However, finality spares no one, and I hope you can find the strength to take it. Au revoir, ma salama, goodbye.